Oh yeah, I paused for a little bit.
Yeah,
True. I pressed record and then it just froze.
yeah, it always freezes.
It's
Like it was
it's reducing our bandwidth. I feel like Starlink is getting cheaper. I might just have to pull the plug on getting Starlink.
really? It's still got some latency issues though. You're beaming the low Earth orbit satellites. I've heard it's fine just for like regular, but like if you actually need to do like, you know,
Video
high
games.
bandwidth, yeah, it's just not great.
Maybe I'll look at their 30-day return policy or something and just try it and see how.
Might end up stuck with it.
Anyways, you wanna kick us off
Yeah.
with 48?
All right. Episode 48. Continuing the year. Almost there. 2 episodes away from 50. See, a little bit of tariff talks. We actually haven't talked about a lot of things that have happened outside of tech. The tariffs have been a new topic this week, so we'll touch a little bit on that. And then we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago about Meta's kind of like getting rid of all DEI initiatives. And it looks like, yeah, Google is following suit this week. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then that's where we're going this week.
I mean, that's usually what happens, right? It's like the first domino falls and then the other dominoes follow. Just like
Yeah.
return to office, work from home, they just kind of follow each other.
Yeah.
But earnings is our first topic. We talked about earnings last week where most of the Mag 7 had reported and it was all over the board with, Meta was the clear winner, continues to be the clear winner. Their stock just keeps going up and up and up, which is great for Meta employees. Congratulations. But I didn't see that one coming. Well, I knew Meta was going to be a good long-term stock. I didn't think it was going to be 10% up last week. I did
Yeah.
buy but my last buy point was 560.
That's pretty good. I
Yeah.
I bought in more around 591. I was like, man, it's such a bad entry. But I was checking it and I was like, wow, I'm up 20% on it. I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap.
Because were you waiting for 500?
Yeah, I was waiting for 500 and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna add to it. But it was a bad entry. I could have
Yeah.
gotten in around 562, but at that time I was just like, screw it.
Yeah.
I'm up
I will
20%,
say
so
though,
even at
the Buffett line, when everyone's buying, you should be selling. When everyone's selling, you should be buying. So I think Meta's at a top right now. And so once the first piece of bad news or economic data comes down, it'll fall pretty hard. But this week was Amazon and Alphabet. And Amazon mostly in line with earnings, meaning they didn't surprise, they didn't miss, they didn't beat. It's kind of in line. They emphasize a heavy focus on AI and AWS, but forecasted a weak outlook for the rest of the year. I think there's still a lot of jitters in the economy with Trump and what his tariff plans are actually going to do to the economy. I was reading the Amazon recap, and they're saying it's mostly beneficial for Amazon because higher prices, right, are going to result from tariffs. And so higher prices mean Amazon gets more margin money from that. So it's going to benefit Amazon, but the weak outlook is more so because of the consumer sentiment. There's, jitters of how much people are actually going to spend in this next year because prices will rise if tariffs are enacted. But it was down 2% to end the week. And then the next one was Alphabet. Alphabet was, I think, the clear loser of the Mag 7. They missed on earnings pretty badly.
yeah.
They talked about spending $75 billion on AI in the next year, and they closed the week down 7.3%, which is pretty hard.
Yeah, that hurt the portfolio a little bit.
Meta up 10%, Alphabet down 7%.
If only I would have sold Google when it was over 200 and just bought more Meta. That would
Yeah,
have been the play. But it's hard. It's hard to find tops.
it
Yeah.
is. Timing market versus timing the market.
Yeah. Because like if I had sold Meta at that quote top, I would have done it at like 620, 650, because that's
Yeah.
kind of where people were thinking it's like the top. and then it just like shot higher. I would have missed out if I had done that.
Yeah.
So tough.
I did sell a big chunk of Meta in one of our portfolios, and it was a good move because I sold a big chunk. I sold like half the Meta that I have in this one portfolio,
Mm,
but I did it over time.
yep.
So taking advantage, like DC,
Yeah.
reverse DCAing
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And I used that to buy Nvidia at 120.
Wow.
We'll see how that performs in 10. This is like a long-term portfolio, so
Yeah.
it's like hold for 10, 20 years.
I was gonna say I sold out of my Nvidia because I was like, okay, this is BS.
That's getting too low for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said 120. Yeah, I sold around like in the 120s, and it popped back because of like Google saying, oh, we're gonna spend 75 billion. So it's like 128 this week. But I'm just like, but still, yeah, I was tired.
Yeah.
I
Well,
made
that's
some
the
profit,
thing.
so I sold it. Too many
That
unknowns.
that's the thing. Like a lot of companies, DeepSeek
Yeah,
restart. DeepSeek for the most part has blown off. I think there's
I think
never
so.
like huge news. Like I said, overreaction. I think overreacted to it,
Yeah,
and tech companies here in the U.S. have emphasized that no, they're doubling down on Nvidia chips.
yeah.
So that's what's been helping the stock. I think Nvidia is still a great long-term investment. But the one that I texted you about over during the week was Palantir. Oh my gosh.
It's most ridiculous. I don't look at Palantir, but this particular earnings, I saw it quite often, and so I was like, wow, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I texted Tony saying I remember buying Palantir at like $9. I even think it went down to $4 at one
Yeah,
point in the whole bear market.
yeah.
And I was never really, I don't know why I stayed away from Palantir. I think it's because it was so volatile
It's
that I
just
just
not.
couldn't deal with putting, money into it and seeing it drop 20 to
It's
40% in like
it,
a month.
yeah. It's actually not that price profitable.
Yeah.
It's
But
like if
the thing,
you there's so many analyst things talking about it this week, and like the two things that caught my eye is like, okay, this is probably why I never paid attention to it. Is like most of its ownership or whatever is driven by retail. Institutions don't really pay attention to it because it's not profitable. It funnels so much money out of the company to pay shareholders is the other big concern. Like if you look at their compensation, whatever, it's like they're funneling out like hundreds of millions of dollars
I mean,
to the CEO and to their execs and stuff. And so it's just like a huge red flag. But its stock at this point is its retail is just driving it for the most part.
in the last year, Palantir is up 350%.
Yeah. It basically went from like $10 to whatever, 100.
That's great. In the last 5 years, it's up 1,000%. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And Nvidia did something similar, but at least Nvidia is actually super profitable, right? Versus Palantir, it's like it's not, but it's writing off retail. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
I did have this hunch though with Palantir a couple months ago related to Trump. And the reason is
uh,
because Peter Thiel, is a
yeah,
co-founder, I guess.
yeah,
And he is a cahoots Republican person. And so
yeah,
I had this hunch that is there going to be a Trump tailwind with Palantir as well because of that relationship?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's adding to it. But man, that was a miss on my part. Like, should have bought
yeah,
Palantir.
yeah. There's a lot of business out there.
But the
So much
last
regret.
one I want to talk about, not a miss for me, is CrowdStrike.
Oh yeah, that was really a good
CrowdStrike.
play.
Yeah. It's ever since that bottom when it crashed because of the downtime last August, since that bottom, it's up almost 100%. So
Yep,
easy
it's
money.
good.
Like I put a big chunk of money in that because I knew that I was going to come back and
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I should have held longer. It's like I had leaps on it, like with plenty of time, but I was like, again, trying to time the tops, selling too early, and not letting your winners run.
it's not financial
Continue to
advice,
learn the
guys.
lesson.
We got to get that disclaimer. This is not financial advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. This is the tribulations of Tony and Matt in the stock market.
Our winners and quite often more failures.
Okay, let's move on to the first topic here after earnings, related to, I guess, what we were talking about with Amazon, but tariffs. So tariffs, we know, is a big, hot news item these days because Trump's whole plan is related to tariffs. One of his pillars is around tariffs. And people were surprised that on day one, he didn't sign any executive orders to enact tariffs. But he was just waiting for week 2, where he then signed executive orders to enact tariffs against Canada, Mexico, China. Now, the Canada-Mexico tariffs got stymied pretty quickly. They were supposed to go into enforcement, I think it was like Monday or something at midnight, or Tuesday at midnight. But they got delayed for 35 days because the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, and the President of Mexico agreed to send 10,000 troops to their borders to help with border security. Trump's whole narrative is that we need more border protection because we have a fentanyl epidemic, and the fentanyl is coming from Canada and Mexico being smuggled over the borders. So that's why he wanted more help from these countries to secure their borders. Once they agreed to send troops down there, Trump delayed the tariffs for 35 days while they negotiate more terms on how to prevent these tariffs. Meanwhile, the China tariffs have enacted. I don't know right now all the details on all the tariffs. Meanwhile, the China tariffs that he had in place did start, but he did pull back on one of them, which was tariffs on small packages. I think when these tariffs went into account, there was a bunch of chaos and like mail trying to get delivered from China to here, and so he pulled that one back. But some other tariffs are in play for China. China is responding on the other side with their tariffs and these trade wars. And on February 10th, China will charge a 15% border tax on imports of US coal and liquefied natural gas products. And there's also a 10% tariff on American crude oil, agriculture machinery, and large engine cars. So big trade wars going on with Trump's whole tariff plan to make America great again.
Yeah.
And bring jobs back to America. But we all know that tariffs are actually not great for the consumer economy here in the US.
Yeah, so a couple of things I found funny is so the Canada and New Mexico, right? So they kind of like implemented for a day and then conversations happened and then they're like on pause for like a month, right? But it appears like everything that the Mexico and Canada like kind of like gave back to to postpone the tariffs were something they already promised under Biden's administration. So I thought that was actually it was kind of funny. So they
Or
didn't
like
actually give
expediting
any.
it then.
Yeah, they didn't actually give anything. They just restated what they were planning to do anyways. So even those 10,000 troops is like something they'd already promised under Biden's administration. But per Trump, he got his accolades from his supporters. And, oh wow, see, he's being tough and he managed to get this. And if you paid attention, they're just reiterating what they had already promised under Biden. So I thought that was,
Well,
I
but
think
at the
it's
same
like
time, they never sent them though.
well, I mean, they had just signed them like near the end of Biden's term,
Oh,
apparently. Yeah. But I think it's just like a master class in taking credit for something he didn't do. You know what I mean? So that was one. And then, yeah, this 10% tax on, it's basically a loophole in the tax system, right? Where if you ship something under $800, you don't pay taxes on it at all.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so these companies like
You
Temu,
were
Shein, they send things packaged up in a way where they avoid these taxes. And so they got rid of it, or they basically stopped that, right? But then I guess he changed his mind to not make China angry. I'd have no idea why he would change his mind on that. But when it was implemented for that day, I saw a lot of news on TikTok. It's like people were like complaining. It's like guys, why are we being charged like DHL or like the US or UPS is holding my package hostage and telling me I have to pay $50 or something on my $200 order? It's like Trump said this wasn't supposed to be the case. The countries are supposed to pay it. I don't know what to do. People are like, FAFO. But oh, so this was a meme that went out. FAFO. It's like basically, fuck around and find out. Trump posted it on his True Social or whatever, and so people have been using that for MAGA posts, right? It's like, yeah, this is what actually is gonna happen. I thought it's funny. It's entertaining. It's really more entertaining around the comments and responses to MAGA posts complaining about what's
Yeah.
going on. It's like, yep, FAFO.
Well, yeah, I mean, tariffs in general, just to expand on that more, if you don't know, like tariffs are meant to put pressure on other countries to get what we want, but also theoretically to have more jobs in America. For example, like if you can't import something from China or export something from China, then one way to get around that is to build like a warehouse in
Yep,
the US, create jobs. However, our cost of labor in the US is much higher than cost of labor in China. So
yeah,
like that doesn't really work because yeah, there'll be more jobs here, but companies will have to pay more. Apple, for example, if Apple was to bring all their iPhone, if
production.
Apple was to bring all of their iPhone production to the US, they'd pay, I don't know, we'll just say 50% more. And that's going to mean their iPhones are going to be theoretically 50% more expensive. So as a consumer here, that hurts us. So that's where the risk of inflation comes back into play. The other part of this is,
Yep,
Powell, he's been having somewhat of a war with Trump publicly on decreasing or increasing rates, being hawkish or dovish on the economy. And that's because, yeah, if tariffs are imposed, we're going to see inflation get back up. Things are going to get more
yeah,
expensive. And that means the market's going to go down probably. That means rates are going to have to come back up. So it's not really a good, I mean, my mind, not really a good plan.
yeah, yep. At the grocery store is really where you're gonna see it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, like eggs, yeah, I've been following the egg story, but that's not due to like tariffs, due to an unknown, unspoken bird flu.
I know yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? It's not really in mainstream media, but yeah, it's one of the big drivers of why eggs are going up so quickly. It's because all the chickens are getting infected, and they have to.
Yeah.
The only way to really solve it is it's like you don't give medicine for bird flu. It's like you kill the chicken, and so
Yep.
like tens of millions of chickens are being killed to try and stop the spread to other flocks. And again, it's like because all our health agencies and stuff have been put on hold as far as communicating out anything, yeah, it's not really widespread, but when you
Yeah.
find out, it'll probably be too late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like Trump's, tariff plan benefits, the ultra wealthy more than
Yeah, yeah, it
than
does.
and it really hurts the middle class and below.
Yeah, it was what was it? Was Davos like this week or last week? And then Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, was giving an interview and he was asked about inflation. He was like, at this point, it's like people just need to get over it. We'll have a little bit of inflation, but you just have to deal with it. And I'm thinking, so you have this millionaire, and not just any millionaire, just like tens and hundreds of millions of dollars worth. And it's like, yeah, eggs going up even to like $10 or $20, this dude is not going to even notice, right? That's like, I don't know, it's like toilet paper to him,
Yeah.
right? So for him to say that, it's like, you just kind of want to slap him on the back of the head. It's like, let's see if you could say that if you were only making 30,000 a year, right? And so this is where it's like again, these billionaires and multi-hundred-dollar millionaires, they just don't really understand, and they never will. And so when you see MAGA and whatever the lower class support these guys because they're gonna do something great, it's like they don't care about you. That's not how they became rich, right?
No.
Anyways, so not to whatever grandstand.
You're starting to
It's
take a
just
side here, so
yeah,
Tony.
I'm starting to take a side. I'm trying. I shouldn't, but even as me myself, right? It's
Yeah.
just like, anyways. All right,
Yeah. Yeah.
move
Well,
on.
that, that's what we have to expect in this next year. We'll see. Like, hopefully inflation doesn't come back, because quite honestly for me, one, for my monthly kind of burn, household burn, but also two, for my stocks, like
Yeah,
both of those things was pretty hard to stomach.
yeah. So that's same here. Being unemployed, you do kind of like have to watch where your money's going a little bit more, and inflation
Yeah.
definitely doesn't help.
All right, let's move on to the second topic, which is also related to kind of what's going on in new presidential world. Yeah, tell us about DEI, Tony.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of mentioned this when we talked about Meta. I don't know, the Meta renaissance during the next 4 years. Talking about how other tech companies will likely follow the lead as they typically do. And so Google has basically announced they're halting their DEI hiring initiatives, which is actually a big deal because Google was probably one of the leaders in this thought of DEI being a really part of their culture. And so, yeah, they're entering their hiring targets based off DEI and then reevaluating a lot of the trainings and the things that they do within the company itself related to this, which I thought was kind of, it was like, it's kind of shocking, yet not surprised anymore because I feel like Google has been going down this path for a while now of kind of like dismantling all the things that it built up.
There that like wasn't there that article that came out, that employee written article like a few years ago around
Yeah,
diversity or DEI?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, where they like
I'm not sure which one.
complained about it.
Yeah, that's
The
right. He was
internal letter.
complaining. Yes, yeah, that's right. There's some dude who was like, he got fired for it or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, so it's like it's a big deal. I haven't kept up with the internal like talking whatever about it. It's like again, you see this mix of some people are like glad it's going away finally because a lot of people did feel like it was kind of like ruining Google. And then the other half, it's like it's part of what Google is, right? Uh, So yeah, it's a very divisive topic. But some of the things I thought were kind of ridiculous too. So like there's this DEI training that you have to take every year.
Yeah.
And one of the examples used, which I thought was funny because I'm like, wow, this is something I do all the time with my friends. But it had an example of an Asian woman with a non-Asian husband, and they had a kid together. And then the person that was saying example keeps like, wow, your child is so beautiful because, being mixed. It's like mixed race babies are always so much better looking, right? When you put them together. It was something like that. And I was thinking, yeah, we kind of do that all the time with my friends. It's like, wow, you've got like a hybrid, right? But anyways, so those are the type of things that I think, some people feel like going too far because it just made it tough to really say anything. Because anything you said would offend somebody.
Yeah. I know another company that's in the DEI news is Apple. Heard this report last week that there was a proposal from, I guess, a big shareholder, to get rid of the DEI program, and a different bigger investor, was recommending to vote against it. So it's interesting for me. Like, I am a huge proponent of diversity. There's this book that we did a product academy called The Diversity Equation. And it was actually a really good workshop, and the book is really good, but it was just kind of proof around how diversity actually makes better products.
Yep.
Just like diverse thinking. Now, diversity is part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mhm.
And so it is a core component. I think diversity is super important. Equity, I think being equitable is very important. But I think where that tends to impact people the most is in pay. For example, like high performers versus low performers, new hires, right? There's always like a fine line around what is equitable versus what's deserved, right?
Yep.
And then there's the inclusion aspect where we know the famous act of inclusion. Remember that in
Yep.
our big meetings
Yeah.
that we'd start with? Let's have an
Yeah.
act of inclusion.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty comical. It's like, is it really an act of inclusion if you're telling everybody, if you're forcing everyone to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the inclusion, I think, is important. At the same time, not
Yeah.
everyone wants to be included.
Yeah. The funny thing I find about DEI is I don't think so even people within tech, but mostly people outside of tech, don't actually understand what DEI actually means. And so it's not just about the color of your skin, right? This also
Or your gender.
gender.
Yeah.
And this also affects, MAGA, which is predominantly Anglo-Saxon or white, right? This affects y'all too, right? White women. This also affects how you get hired, right? So it's just not just about color. It's also about disabilities. And I also find this the most ironic thing is Governor Abbott is always tweeting out there like, Trudeau, be careful, like Texas, well, we're gonna make cotton more expensive for you or whatever. He's like one of the biggest DEI hires. He's in a wheelchair. It's like the reason you have equitable access, with like ramps and stuff, we pay tons of money to build ramps on all, everywhere. It's because of DEI,
Yeah.
right? And so I find it's a little bit ironic and kind of like the ridiculous. People just don't understand what it actually means and just jump to the race card, right?
Yeah.
Or hiring unqualified people. It's not really about that.
Yeah. The whole thing about Trump blaming the helicopter crash on DEI. Did you see that clip where the reporter was asking him this question, like, so are you saying that this is because of DEI? And then he was like, well, yeah, because I have common sense. I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, that's an absurd comment to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
But yeah, so it's just a lot of, well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, a lot of these things are being dismantled. It's kind of a shame, but again, I think I guess you can view it either way. You can view it as it's gone a little bit to the point, it's gone to an extremist point of view at this point, right? And so you've kind of left behind all these
yeah,
other people who just it's hard to understand, which
yeah,
I can also see that, right? But yeah, it's kind of taking it also to extremes, right?
yeah,
And so you're just not bringing along everybody, which in and of itself could highlight the problem too, right? It's like you want everybody to understand DEI, but if you've also excluded them from it, then you're kind of going against it also. Anyways,
yeah,
not to get too into it, but it's
yeah.
just general misunderstanding overall. It's going to impact a lot of people who don't think they'll be impacted. And then FAFO.
Did you mention this already that Target, Meta, and other companies are also reducing their DEI related policy?
Yeah, so Target. Oh, yeah, okay, this is what I was going to say. Costco apparently is going to be the last bastion of maintaining DEI. So Costco came out and said they are maintaining all their DEI initiatives, etc. And then there were a few people wanting to protest. I think the actual federal government wanted to sue Costco for not dismantling their DEI initiatives. It was like they're a private company. Well, they're public, but still, it's a private enterprise. It's like you guys have no legal standing to stop them from doing DEI if they want to. Because, right, you get rid of DEI, you basically allow discrimination. And so the government's saying you can't implement DEI. Does it make sense? because you
Yeah.
already said we can discriminate however we want. And so if you want to treat DEI as discrimination, there's no law preventing it because you guys dismantled it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
We'll see.
that
We'll
kind
see
of
what happens.
we'll see. FAFO. That's like my new go-to acronym now. FAFO.
And let's see what week 3 holds for the Trump era.
Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. China's so I expect more China news because it's not golden. That's Japan. It is what is it in China right now? It's their New Year's, Chinese New Year's, whatever. Big holidays in China right now. So a lot of people are just going back home, not around for like the next month. And so that's
Mhm.
why I think you don't see as much activity out of China at the moment.
Mm.
But when everybody gets back, I think that's when we'll start to see what happens from
Yeah.
that perspective.
All right. Well, we'll continue to track the happenings and talk about it on this show.
Yeah.
That's all we have for today. Episode 48 in the books.
In the books.
And if you like what you're hearing, please give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment and tell us what you want to hear or what you don't want to hear.
I'd really love to find out, like, why are you listening?
There are viewers, there are listeners, there are watchers. We sound desperate.
Yeah,
We're gonna cut
kinda
it off. All right, Tony, I'll see you next week.
All right.